welcome back to Oak Abode. Today I am going to preserve a bunch of these eggs. We have probably over 100 eggs here from our backyard chickens that we can't eat right now. So I'm gonna show you how we preserve them for winter. There are a few different methods, like 3-ish, that I'll talk about. I'll tell you why we choose to do it the way that we do it, but I'll also tell you a couple other options in case you want to use one of those instead. We get a lot of questions on a few of our egg storage containers, so I will link those for you below if you want those for yourself. So this is not even all of the eggs that we have. I am going to start by setting up my trusty Cuisinart, and we will go from there. So before anybody asks, this beautiful kitchen is not my kitchen. We are still building, but we're getting kind of close. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start cracking eggs. That's the most time-consuming part of this. I'm not obviously a food safety expert or anything, so do your own research. This is our favorite method. Basically what we do is we crack the eggs. I crack a dozen at a time, and then I will put them in this Cuisinart, and I'll use the Cuisinart to scramble them. Once they're all good and scrambled, I'll just put them a dozen at a time into gallon Ziploc or reusable if you prefer reusable. I'll link some options for those below, but freezer bags. And basically I just have a block of frozen scrambled raw egg, a dozen at a time. If you are like us and you let them get way too piled up, you might want to smell the egg. Some people like to crack an egg into a separate dish before they combine it so that they can see if it's bad. Because obviously if you crack a bad egg and then add it to other good eggs, it's kind of all needs to go in the garbage. All right, so I'm gonna do 4 more here. Some of these eggs are smaller, so I might throw an extra smaller egg in there to equal a dozen. Basically the reason I like to do a dozen, this one might be a double yolker. Let's see, I bet it is. Nope, just one. Basically the reason I do a dozen at a time is because we like to do like egg bake recipes with this in the winter. And usually I'll do a dozen eggs at a time, or sometimes I'll double the recipe, so then I'll just put 2 of those frozen eggs. So in the winter, we just kind of have to forego the fresh, farm fresh over easy or farm fresh fried egg with a soft yolk. That's something we can live with because really we're looking for sustainability long term. And we do get some eggs during the winter, so it's not like we never have that, but for the majority of what we're eating, it's probably gonna be more stuff like this. Now, we do like to feed our shells back to our chickens. Some people say if you want to avoid egg eaters that you wanna like crush them up really good. Some people bake them. If you wanna be that extra cautious, be my guest. We've never had an egg eater. We always throw them back to our girls just kind of like this, especially if they have some of the egg on them already. They really like them. So that's how they get their calcium back. And also the black soldier fly larvae. A lot of you guys know that we feed our chickens Grubterra black soldier fly larvae, which have calcium. So use our discount code OAKABODE and the link below if you want a 10% discount on those. Our chickens love those too. You don't have to do a dozen eggs at a time. So if you want to do increments of like 2 eggs, if you want to use it for baking, or 4 eggs, they're almost like ice cube trays, but they're bigger than ice cubes. And they have like half cup, I'll link them below, but they have like half cup and cup. So if you wanna scramble like a couple eggs at a time and freeze them in those cubes, then you can defrost those and use those for baking in the winter, things like banana bread or that kind of thing. Adding the baker's dozen to the Cuisinart, and we're gonna blend them up. I'm definitely not gonna wash this bowl quite yet because we have a lot more to do. Okay, now I'm just gonna blend it. Looks pretty good to me. So because we're doing so many eggs, I think it's well worth it to dirty up the Cuisinart. Much easier than scrambling them by hand. This is kind of the hardest part, figuring out how to pour it without making a huge mess. I wish they had like little spouts on these things. Why don't they? This is about how full it's gonna be. And then I'm gonna lay it flat and freeze it. So try and get as much air out as I can. And we will just stack these in our deep freezer. I'm just gonna lay it on one of these baking sheets to help it be nice and flat. And then obviously it needs to freeze. So I have found that if I start stacking them and put them in the freezer to freeze at once, they don't freeze perfectly flat. So depending on how much you wanna save space, you might wanna just freeze one of these at a time. They don't take long to freeze, maybe an hour or 2. But there's a dozen right there. So I think I'm gonna do, man, we probably have around 10 dozen more to go. So, oh, the other thing is to label it, because you always think you'll remember, but you never do. with what it is, and we're gonna put the date on there too. Cool. All right, 1 dozen down, 11 to go. So while I'm doing some more, I'll just talk through a few of the other methods. One of the more popular homesteading methods of preserving eggs is called, I believe, water glassing. I really hope I have that right. If not, I'll put the correct term on the screen. Basically, I believe it's a solution of water and I want to say it's like a brine of some kind. But I believe you just cover the eggs in that solution and they're supposed to keep for quite a while, like months. The reason that we don't do water glassing is just because I'm not comfortable with it. I think it's probably totally fine for the most part. I am one of those people who is probably on the slightly more cautious side when it comes to food. If it smells good, I'm like, right, I'll eat it. But since there are things that you can't detect with smelling with a lot of food preservation techniques, I'm just not gonna be the resource for you there because I feel uncomfortable with a lot of it. I'm trying to get better, but that being said, water glassing is not something I'm yet comfortable with. Maybe someday I will be, but there are some other YouTube videos on that method if you want to look that up. Another method of preserving eggs would be pickling eggs. Pickling eggs is probably something I would consider before, personally, not saying you should or shouldn't, but probably something I would do before trying to glass my eggs. I'm not sure what the term is. There are all sorts of different recipes out there, so you can make flavored pickled eggs. It's also something I haven't done, not because I'm scared of it really, but more because I don't have a lot of time these days with everything going on. So I would love to try that at some point, but if you're like me and you just don't want the eggs to go to waste, but you're also overwhelmed at the idea of boiling water, sanitizing jars and all that, obviously that's something I need to get better about just doing, I think. But when it's coming down to like this level of eggs that we need to save, that's definitely something where I prefer this method where we just spend an hour, maybe 2, just cracking a bunch of eggs, freezing them, and then we can use them in the winter. This is seriously the hardest part. They should definitely have spouts. There's a little skill to it involved, I'm learning. And the other option too, obviously, is just to keep the eggs on your counter or in your refrigerator. They just probably won't stay as good as long that way. Obviously, the nice part about that is you are gonna have the same, you can do like eggs over easy or sunny side up, you're maintaining their texture. The downside being that they're just not gonna keep as long. There is so much dispute on the internet about how long eggs keep. They have a healthy bloom coating the outside of the shell. They're supposed to keep quite a bit longer. Sorry for all the lighting changes. It is officially fall, which means it's getting pretty dark out. And I am not a real YouTuber because I don't have real studio lighting. I would love all that though. To me, this is 21st century preserving. This is what makes most sense for our life. If I have to do like old school preserving techniques all the time, it just will not happen. So this works really well for us. Like I said, we usually use the eggs for egg like bakes or casseroles. When we freeze a dozen at a time, you can also freeze less than that. I think this one's gonna be a double yolker. Let's see. You won't be able to see. 1, come on. Lame. I'm doing easily less than 5 minutes per dozen. I'll be right back. Ooh, come on, double yolk for this one, let's see. Nope, not my day. If you wanna do smaller batches at a time, I'm trying to think other things you can use, you know, like egg washes. Everybody loves like pie in the winter, right? This would be good for egg washes or other kinds of cooking and baking. Usually, there's so many things require like a scrambled egg or 2, so. I mean, really, 1 egg bake feeds our family for quite a few days. So this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is like 7 weeks worth of breakfasts here. Pretty cool. So I'm sure you guys have better things to do than watch me crack eggs and put them in bags all day. So I think we'll leave the video right there. Again, I linked our favorite egg holders and some other stuff that you will need for this exact technique. But if you guys have variations on this technique, or if you have other techniques that you like to use to preserve the eggs, Again, people who are unfamiliar with raising chickens, what happens is during the summer, the hens lay a ton of eggs just because there's a lot of sunlight and that's how their little systems work. And then in the winter, they peter off quite a bit. Some people do add light bulbs in the coop to kind of force their laying through the winter. If you do that, that's your prerogative. We don't do that. We like them to have a little break during the winter. And this way, the theory is the hens lay more eggs as they're older too, so we don't have to go through a ton of hens this way. We still have hens that are 4 years old now that are laying great. So anyway, I mean, I did like 7 bags in about 30 minutes. So not very time consuming. If you guys have your other methods that you like to use, or if you've tried water glassing or pickled eggs, I still haven't done that. I would really like to do that. So please leave a comment with what you like to do to preserve the eggs that you get in the summer to kind of hold you over through the winter. If you guys aren't already following us on Instagram, our Instagram handle is oak_abode. And if you like this video and you want to join us in the future, don't forget to hit subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.